No one expected the debate to detonate in the first 2 minutes. But that's exactly what happened when Kamala Harris leaned into her microphone, stared directly at the camera, and delivered the line that froze every newsroom in America. Trump's economy wasn't strong. It was a lie, built on debt, giveaways, and illusions. The audience gasped. The moderators blinked like their scripts suddenly vanished. Even the opposing candidates shifted in their seats. Kamala didn't hesitate. She pressed forward, voice steady, controlled, deadly precise. Wages flat. Healthcare costs up. Middle-class families drowning while billionaires cashed in. That's not strength, it's sabotage dressed as prosperity. The crowd murmured, part shock, part electricity. But the real surprise came from Gavin Newsom. He leaned in, nodded once, and fired the second shot. And every economist not working for Trump said the same thing. The numbers were manipulated. The hardship was real. Instant tension. Instant virality. Cameras zoomed. Trump's team in the front row stiffened, whispering urgently. The moderators tried to pivot to safer territory, but momentum was gone. Kamala had grabbed the narrative by the throat. Newsom had locked it in place. Then Kamala dropped the line that would dominate every headline by morning. Trump didn't build an economy. He built a mirage, and working Americans paid the price. The room erupted, some cheering, some booing, everyone reacting. It was no longer a debate. It was an ambush. A controlled political strike that landed with surgical precision. And Trump, watching from backstage, was already marching toward the stage, demanding to respond. America had no idea what was about to happen next. The moderators thought Kamala's opening strike would fade after a few seconds, but it didn't. Her words, "Trump's economy was a lie," were still hanging in the air when the entire stage shifted. The audience wasn't murmuring anymore. They were frozen, waiting for what would happen next. Trump straightened in his seat, jaw tightening, but before he could react, Gavin Newsom leaned toward his mic with a calmness that felt almost dangerous. "She's right," he said, voice steady. "And every economist not on Trump's payroll knows it." That line hit like a shockwave. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half stunned. Trump snapped his head toward Newsom, eyes narrowing, and suddenly the debate wasn't a debate anymore. It was a collision. Kamala didn't flinch. She kept her gaze locked forward, her posture unshaken. "You inflated numbers, hid losses, and sold empty victories," she said. That wasn't leadership. It was performance. The moderator attempted a soft, trembling, "Let's stay on topic." But nobody on stage heard him, or cared. Trump finally fired back. "You two can rehearse your lines all day," he said, forcing a laugh, "but Americans lived under my economy. They know the truth." Newsom leaned in again, measured, precise. "Yes, they lived it," he said. "Which is why they're not buying your revisionist history." A few audience members gasped. Others clapped. Phones shot up as people realized, this clip is going viral tonight. Trump opened his mouth to respond, but Kamala spoke first, quiet, sharp, surgical. "You created the illusion of strength by burying the failures. We're done pretending not to see them." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The tension on stage tightened like a cable pulled to its limit. And the moderators, now visibly panicked, still couldn't stop the momentum. Because the next exchange, the one Trump was preparing, would ignite the biggest uproar of the night. Newsom didn't wait for the moderator this time. He leaned forward with a tone so steady it instantly cut through the noise in the hall. "Kamala didn't expose a lie," he said. "She exposed a pattern." The audience shifted. Cameras tightened. Trump crossed his arms, bracing himself. Newsom continued, each word sharp but measured. Every time the numbers don't match the slogans, you call it fake news. Every time economists challenge you, you attack them instead of the data. A low wave of murmurs rippled across the room. Harris watched from the side, her expression calm, almost surgical. Trump opened his mouth to snap back, but Newsom didn't give him the chance. The economy wasn't strong, he said. It was fragile. Propped up by temporary boosts and PR spin. And the minute the pressure hit, the cracks showed. Hegseth shifted in his seat, uneasy. The moderator raised a hand to intervene. Too late. Newsom pressed on. Kamala didn't nuke this debate. She told the truth. And you're upset because the truth doesn't serve you anymore. Gasps. A few scattered claps. Trump's jaw tightened. Then Newsom delivered the line that would replay across every social feed. Strong economies don't collapse under scrutiny. Stories do. The room froze. Even Harris raised her eyebrows, impressed. Trump leaned toward his mic, but for the first time all night. He hesitated. The crowd could feel it. Newsom had shifted the momentum. Not with volume. Not with theatrics. But with precision. The moderator finally spoke, voice unsteady. Let's move to the next question. But it was clear to everyone. The question no longer mattered. The clash had already defined the night. Trump didn't wait a second. He slammed his hand on the podium so hard the microphones jolted, and the audience gasped. A lie? He barked. Kamala, you wouldn't know the economy if it walked up and handed you a manual. The room erupted, half cheers, half shock. The moderators tried to cut in, but Trump's voice rolled straight over them. You stand here pretending you saved America when you couldn't even save your own numbers. My economy was the strongest in history, everybody knows it. Kamala didn't flinch. Not a blink. She simply folded her hands, waited for him to run out of steam, and said softly. Then why did working families feel like they were drowning? Boom. The question landed heavier than any accusation. The crowd quieted instantly, like someone hit a mute button. Trump opened his mouth to fire back, but Newsom leaned into his mic first. Mr. President, he said calmly, numbers don't lie. But cherry-picked ones do. A ripple of stunned whispers filled the room. Kamala continued, voice steady and controlled. People remember what they lived through. They remember the shutdowns, the fear, the uncertainty, and the cracks in the economy you claimed was unbreakable. Trump pointed directly at her. Your administration caused the cracks. Kamala shook her head. No, Donald. You left us the cracks. We just had to keep the country from falling through them. The moderators froze. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in tighter, sensing the seismic shift. Newsom added one clean, cutting line. Defending your record isn't the same as having a strong one. Trump stiffened. The audience reacted with a mix of gasps and nervous laughter. And for the first time that night, it looked like Trump wasn't steering the stage. Kamala and Newsom were. The energy had changed. The debate wasn't a clash anymore. It was a takeover. Trump straightened his shoulders, lifting the mic with the confidence of someone used to reclaiming a room. The audience leaned in, expecting a full-force counterattack. His voice dropped into that familiar, commanding cadence. You call my economy a lie, he said, scanning the crowd. Millions of Americans would disagree. They lived it. They remember it. A wave of applause rolled through part of the room. But Kamala didn't flinch. She waited, calm, steady. Letting the noise settle before she even blinked. Trump continued, more forcefully now. People were working, businesses were growing, and this country was winning. That's not a lie, that's history. He expected the moment to land hard. But it didn't. Not this time. Kamala leaned in, her tone low but razor clear. History also includes what people struggled through, she said. Numbers don't erase lived reality. Growth doesn't mean fairness. A strong economy shouldn't lift a few. It should lift everyone. The room shifted again, small, subtle, but undeniable. Trump opened his mouth to respond, but Newsom stepped in smoothly, almost surgically. The question isn't whether the economy had strong moments, he said. The question is who benefited, and who never felt it. A hush fell. Not silence, anticipation. Newsom continued. If your success story leaves half the country behind, then it isn't a success story. It's a campaign slogan. The line struck clean. Not harsh, not personal, just precise. Trump's expression tightened, just slightly. He wasn't losing the room. But he wasn't owning it anymore either. Kamala followed with a final, controlled strike. People don't want nostalgia. They want truth. And truth doesn't need applause to stand. The moderator blinked, realizing the debate had entered a new phase. Where calm confidence was hitting harder than volume ever could. Trump finally leaned into his mic, forcing a smile that didn't match his eyes. The room could sense it. He was trying to regain the rhythm, the dominance, the confidence he usually commanded on a debate stage. But Kamala's strike and Newsom indestige have cocked and degister misty. Look, Trump began, voice pitched a little too high, my economy was the strongest America ever had. Everybody knows it. Ask anyone. The line fell flat. No applause. No reaction. Just a thick silence, like the audience was waiting for something real. Kamala didn't move, but her expression said plenty, calm, steady, unshaken. Newsom crossed his arms, watching Trump with the kind of focus that made viewers at home lean closer to the screen. Trump continued, this time a bit sharper. They can spin numbers, twist charts, whatever. But facts don't lie. I made America rich again. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, skeptical ones. People were checking their phones, scrolling through real-time fact checks popping up like live commentary. Kamala didn't wait. She leaned forward, exact, deliberate. If your economy was strong, she said softly, why did every working-class family carry the scars of it? A louder murmur this time. Several audience members nodded. Trump stiffened. Newsom delivered the follow-up, perfectly timed. If it was the greatest economy ever, why does every independent report say otherwise? Trump lifted a hand, ready to interrupt. But the audience reacted before he could. For the first time all night, they booed. Not loudly, but enough to break the illusion of control. Trump blinked, thrown off by the shift. He wasn't used to a crowd pushing back. He wasn't used to the room slipping away from him so quietly, so quickly. Kamala leaned back, letting the moment breathe. Newsom didn't say another word. He didn't need to. The damage was done. Not by shouting, not by insults. But by two calm voices refusing to let the old narrative pass without a challenge. The moderator tried once again to steer the stage back to policy, but the debate had already shifted into a different gear, one driven by tension, precision, and the growing sense that something major was coming. And everyone felt it the moment Gavin Newsom stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't match Trump's energy. He simply spoke with the kind of calm that grabs the room harder than shouting ever could. Kamala just exposed the truth, Newsom said. And what's happening right now is exactly why those lies lasted so long, because the moment someone challenges them, you try to drown the conversation in noise. The audience murmured. Some nodded. Some shifted uncomfortably. But everyone listened. Trump scoffed loudly, arms crossed. Oh please, Gavin, spare us the lecture. Newsom didn't break eye contact. Donald, every time someone brings facts, you bring distractions. That's not debate. That's avoidance. A sharp stir swept through the crowd. Kamala watched from her podium, expression steady, letting Newsom take the baton she had handed him moments earlier. Harris added softly, "If the numbers were on your side, you'd use them." Trump bristled, but Newsom continued, staying controlled, almost surgical. Americans aren't asking for shouting matches. They're asking for honesty about why prices rose, why wages stagnated, and why an entire economy was painted as perfect when millions were struggling. For the first time all night, the room shifted toward stillness. A rare, fragile silence in a political arena built on noise. Newsom finished with a line that cut through the lights like a blade. "If truth feels like an attack, maybe that says more about the lie than the person exposing it." The audience reacted instantly. Gasps, applause, stunned quiet. Trump opened his mouth to fire back. But for the first time, he hesitated. Everyone could feel it. Momentum had shifted. And Kamala Harris was already preparing the next blow. The debate hall had been loud all night, applause bursts, sharp exchanges, gasps at every twist. But when Kamala Harris finished her takedown and Newsom backed her with solid data, something rare happened. The room went completely silent. Not awkward, not confused. But processing. Trump opened his mouth to counter, but even he sensed the shift. He paused, half a second, maybe less, yet millions watching at home felt it. For the first time in the debate, he didn't have a ready comeback. Kamala didn't push further. She simply folded her notes, lifted her chin, and let the weight of her words sit. The economy wasn't strong, she repeated softly. It was surviving on borrowed time. And America paid the price. Newsom stepped in beside her, not attacking, not gloating. Just reinforcing the point with calm clarity. "People don't need slogans," he said. "They need honesty. They need leaders who don't rewrite the past just because the truth is inconvenient." A few audience members broke into applause, tentative at first, then growing. Not thunderous, not overwhelming. But meaningful. Like the sound of people realizing they just heard something that cut through the noise. Trump tried again. "This is ridiculous, Biden." But as he launched into his rebuttal, something was off. The energy wasn't behind him. His words bounced off a room that wasn't responding the way it had an hour earlier. Even the moderator sensed it. Her next question didn't steer back to Trump's preferred talking points, it followed the path Harris created. "Vice President Harris," she said, "if the economy was built on a lie, as you say, what makes your plan different?" A powerful moment. Because the question itself acknowledged her framing had won the room. Harris answered smoothly, confidently. "Facts, not fireworks. Solutions, not slogans." Trump shifted his weight. Newsom watched him carefully, aware the tide had turned. And America? America watched with widened eyes, replaying Kamala's line over and over in their minds. Trump's economy was a lie. It wasn't just a quote anymore. It was the headline. The conversation. The shift. And the night wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The moderator tried to close the segment, but the room hadn't recovered from the blast Harris delivered. Trump stood stiff, jaw locked, searching for a comeback that didn't sound defensive. Newsom watched him silently, the tension tightening like a rope around the stage. Harris wasn't finished. She leaned into the mic, quiet, steady, sharper than before. "You didn't build an economy," she said. "You built a narrative. And tonight, that narrative finally collapsed." The audience froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. But it landed like a hammer dropped from the ceiling. Trump took a half step forward, but Newsom cut in, not aggressive, not heated, just controlled. "She's right," he said. People weren't lifted. They were squeezed. And calling it success doesn't make it real. The crowd murmured, some in agreement, some stunned, some angry, but everyone listening. Trump lifted a finger toward Harris, starting to fire back. But she beat him to the punch with one clean line. If the economy was thriving, people wouldn't still be paying for it today. Boom. Phones shot into the air. Panelists in the wings reacted visibly, exchanging looks that said, "That's the headline." Even Trump paused. Not long, just a second, but long enough for the entire nation watching to feel that his rhythm was broken. Newsom stepped beside Harris, adding the final push. Leadership requires honesty. And if telling the truth feels like an attack, maybe it says something about the truth. The stage lights seemed to sharpen. The moderator exhaled. The crowd buzzed with an energy that couldn't be pulled back down. This wasn't just a debate moment anymore. It was a shift in the room. A moment when control slipped from one side and landed firmly in the hands of Harris and Newsom. The ending blow hadn't come yet. But the damage was already done. Trump felt it. The audience felt it. And America watching from home felt it most. By morning, the debate wasn't just trending, it had become the story, the one clip the entire country replayed before breakfast. Networks opened their broadcasts the same way, a split screen showing Kamala's calm detonation, Trump's stunned expression, and Newsom stepping in with quiet precision. The narrative had flipped. Not because of shouting. Not because of insults. But because, for once, the room saw a contrast too sharp to ignore. Kamala's line echoed across every platform. Trump's economy was a lie, and the numbers prove it. Simple. Clean. Devastating. Newsom's follow-up had turned the moment into a two-front strike, and voters noticed. Overnight polls showed a dramatic swing among undecided women, young voters, and independents. People weren't just reacting, they were reconsidering. In diners across Ohio, in classrooms in Nevada, in union halls in Pennsylvania, the conversation wasn't about theatrics. It was about credibility. Clips circulated showing Trump unable to counter the data, unable to regain control, unable to pivot. Supporters defended him, of course, but even they admitted the moment was rough. Some called it uncharacteristically quiet. Others simply said, he didn't have the facts tonight. Meanwhile, Kamala's team released a single 6-second edit. Her line. His silence. Newsom's final nod. The video hit 25 million views by noon. Inside Trump's camp, aides scrambled to build a counter-narrative, inflation spin, job numbers, anything, but every attempt drowned beneath the virality of the moment. Facts weren't the problem. Optics were. Kamala hadn't just won an argument. She'd shifted the emotional ground voters stood on. And by the end of the day, one headline captured the national mood better than anything else. She brought receipts. He brought nothing. The debate was over. But the narrative? Kamala and Newsom now owned it.